I never thought I'd be in a courtroom, fighting the very person who was supposed to protect our neighborhood. But when the HOA president, a woman I'll call Karen, decided to build her custom mansion, she didn't just cross a line. She crossed my property line. That's right. A massive luxury home, complete with a private pool and stone driveway, was built partially on my land. Not a few feet. We're talking a full portion of her house, sitting right where my legal property line begins. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a survey error, something minor that could be resolved with a conversation. But when I approached her, expecting to sort it out, I was hit with a cold wall of arrogance and denial. She didn't just refuse to move it. She claimed it was her land and that I was mistaken. Me, the guy with the deed, the maps, and the receipts. The worst part? She was the president of the HOA. She used that title like a weapon, sending violation letters, holding secret meetings, trying to turn the community against me. But I refused to back down. This wasn't just about property. It was about principle, about standing up to a system that thought it was untouchable. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how it all happened, how I uncovered the truth, took on the HOA in court, and ultimately reclaimed everything that was mine. You're not going to believe what she said when the judge read the verdict. I moved into the neighborhood 5 years ago. The place was everything I had worked toward: quiet, safe, and with just enough space to feel like home without isolation. I purchased a double parcel lot that gave me a little more room than most residents had. I planned to eventually build a workshop or maybe a guest house. It was my dream to own land like that. The HOA was fine at first. Typical stuff: rules about lawn height, mailbox styles, paint colors. Nothing too crazy. I attended a few meetings, met some neighbors, and, for the most part, things were peaceful. That is, until Karen became president. Karen moved in 2 years after me. At first, she seemed pleasant, polite, if a bit too eager. But once she got elected to the HOA board, everything changed. Rules got stricter. Fees went up. Suddenly we were receiving citations for things like having an off-white fence or leaving trash cans out for an extra hour. Despite the tightening grip, I stayed out of it. I paid my dues, kept my yard tidy, and focused on my life. I still had my double parcel and big plans. A year before everything exploded, I noticed some minor survey markers had been disturbed. I chalked it up to landscapers or animals. In hindsight, that was probably the first sign. Then came the construction. I had gone on a work trip for a few weeks. When I returned, I saw heavy machinery on the adjacent lot, my lot. Foundation stakes were already in the ground. I called the county. The permits were real, but something didn't feel right. That's when I started digging. And what I uncovered changed everything. Karen was the kind of person who thrived on power. And the HOA presidency gave her exactly that. She had her own little fiefdom. She hosted HOA meetings like royal court, speaking more than anyone else, making decisions as if she were above protocol. She wasn't always outright nasty, at least not at first. But there was a quiet ruthlessness in the way she ran things. People who challenged her suddenly found themselves buried in code violations. Friends of hers? They got leeway. She wielded favoritism like a sword. When I asked about the construction next door, she smiled like nothing was wrong. "Oh, that's my new place," she said. "We bought the adjacent lot last year. It's going to be stunning. Great views, tons of light." My heart skipped. "You bought the adjacent lot?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Yes," she replied casually. There was some confusion over the parcel lines, but it's all sorted now. That one sentence sent me into a spiral. I hadn't sold anything. No one had even contacted me. I immediately pulled up my property records. The county still listed both parcels under my name. I checked again and again. My ownership was still intact. When I confronted her with the paperwork, she laughed. "Well, the HOA had the land resurveyed. It's common. Boundaries shift a little over time. You're welcome to bring your papers to the next meeting, but honestly, it's not up for debate." That's when I knew she wasn't mistaken. She was lying. The worst part? Her tone was so dismissive, so confident. She really thought she could get away with it. And for a while, she almost did. I spent an entire weekend digging into public records, tax maps, zoning reports, anything I could find to prove my land hadn't magically become hers. And what I found shocked me. Karen hadn't bought any adjacent land. The paperwork she referenced? Non-existent. In fact, The builder she was working with had submitted a survey that did show part of the land as hers, but it was based on an old draft that had never been approved. It was a proposed subdivision map, not an official one. I called a licensed surveyor to come out and assess the property lines again. When the flags were set, it was undeniable. Nearly 20% of her foundation was on my land. Not a fence, not a deck. The literal corner of her future kitchen was on my property. I documented everything: photos, drone footage, official reports. I even got a notarized statement from the surveyor outlining the encroachment. I gave Karen one last chance. I knocked on her door, showed her the report, and calmly said, "You've built on my land. I don't want this to get ugly. Let's figure it out." She didn't even look at the papers. "You're harassing me now," she said. "This is HOA business. And as president, I've reviewed all documents and found no issue." Then she slammed the door in my face. That was it. I was done trying to be civil. The very next day, I met with an attorney. The lawyer couldn't believe it. "She's not only trespassing," he said. "She's effectively trying to steal your land through construction. That's a serious case." He filed a cease and desist notice the same week. We also filed for a temporary injunction to halt construction. But that just made Karen more aggressive. She started issuing HOA violations against me. My mailbox was crooked. My lawn had invasive weeds. My house color was non-compliant. It was war, and I was ready to fight. The day the construction crews received the cease and desist, Karen came storming down my driveway. "You think this is over?" she shouted. "You're just bitter because you can't afford a home like mine." That one hit deep. Not because it was true. It wasn't. But because it showed how far she'd go to belittle someone trying to stand up to her. I stood my ground. "This isn't personal, Karen. You're on my land. I have every right to defend it." "You think the HOA is going to back you?" she sneered. "They voted to approve the build. That makes it legal." I told her the HOA had no authority to overrule county records or property deeds. Her smirk faded a little at that. Then came the neighborhood whisper campaigns. Suddenly, I was difficult. Neighbors who once waved started avoiding me. One guy even accused me of trying to shake down a single mother. Even though Karen had a husband, 2 luxury SUVs, and a vacation home, the isolation hurt. But I had truth on my side, and court was coming soon. I started getting messages from anonymous residents. People who had their own stories about Karen. One woman told me Karen fined her for a holiday decoration violation because she didn't take her wreath down by January 3rd. Another had been denied permission to build a fence, while Karen's friends got new decks approved in a day. It became clear this wasn't just about me. Karen had ruled through fear for too long, but her reign was about to end. My legal team filed a lawsuit for encroachment, property damage, and attempted land theft. We also filed for punitive damages due to her position as HOA president and the abuse of power. Karen, of course, denied everything. Her lawyer claimed reasonable misunderstanding of boundary lines and argued the HOA had approved the plans, which gave her confidence the land was hers. But that's not how the law works. We had evidence. The survey, the county maps, photos of the property before and after, even emails showing her ignoring my warnings. Her defense got weaker by the day. Karen tried to stall. She filed counterclaims, saying I was defaming her character and harassing her construction crew. Her strategy was to drown me in paperwork and legal delays. But my attorney anticipated this. We stayed focused. We collected statements from neighbors, the original property developer, and even the title company. Every time she twisted the truth, we brought receipts. The court scheduled the final hearing within 60 days, thanks to the strength of our case and the urgency of the ongoing construction. She had tried to finish the mansion before the court date, probably hoping a completed house would pressure the judge. But justice doesn't work that way. And when that day in court finally came, she wasn't ready. The courtroom was packed. Apparently, word had gotten out. Even some of the neighbors showed up, curious to see the infamous Karen meet her match. Karen strutted in like it was just another HOA meeting. Her lawyer looked more nervous than she did. My attorney laid it all out. The title, the surveys, the photos, the cease and desist, the violations she weaponized. It was undeniable. When the judge asked her lawyer for evidence of ownership, he handed over a poorly printed draft map. Not even an official survey. The judge frowned. This is not a legal document. Do you have anything issued by the county? There was a long silence. Karen stood up and tried to speak directly. Your Honor, I'm the HOA president. I approve the build. The judge cut her off. That's irrelevant. The HOA has no authority over legal property boundaries. Only the county and the title determine ownership. Then, the moment I'll never forget, the judge said, this home has been built illegally, on private land that does not belong to the defendant. The plaintiff retains full ownership, and the defendant is ordered to remove all encroachments. Karen gasped. You could see the reality hitting her for the first time. He continued. Additionally, due to the abuse of power and harassment tactics, this court finds cause to award punitive damages. She tried to speak again, but it was over. Justice was served. Karen was forced to demolish the portion of the home that sat on my land. It delayed her project by nearly a year. She also had to pay damages, court costs, and publicly apologize as part of a settlement agreement. But the biggest blow? She lost her position as HOA president. After everything came to light, the community voted her out in a landslide. Since then, the neighborhood has felt different, calmer, more respectful. Neighbors who once avoided me came by to apologize. Some even thanked me for standing up to her. One said, we all wanted to, but you actually did it. And as for my property, I've finally started building that guest house, this time on my land, with permits and actual boundaries. Looking back, this battle wasn't just about a plot of land. It was about standing up for what's right, even when it's inconvenient. Even when the person you're fighting has power, connections, and a whole community watching. The system can be slow. The process is exhausting. But when you have truth on your side and you stand your ground, justice can prevail. My biggest advice to anyone dealing with an abusive HOA or power-hungry neighbor: document everything. Keep emails, letters, take photos, and never assume someone won't go further than you expect. People like Karen count on others staying silent. They thrive in the shadows, but once you shine a light on them, once you say no more, they crumble. I won't pretend this was easy. I lost sleep. I lost friends. But I gained something far more valuable: self-respect, peace, and a renewed belief in accountability. So, to anyone out there fighting their own, Karen, keep going. Know your rights. And don't be afraid to stand up, even if you stand alone at first, because sometimes taking everything back isn't just about property, it's about power. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.